Guys ready? Good evening. I would like to announce that a quorum is present, the meeting has been duly called, and notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. We will now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071, 072, 074, and 082. And the time is 6 o'clock on the nose. Thank you all very much. Hello, sir.
I'm fine.
How are you?
How's your hand tonight? 4 months.
Oh, wow, really? Okay. All right. I'll do some exercises. Let Julie know.
I'll just give you a fair warning.
We got a lot of stuff to sign tonight. Okay. Good evening, everyone. The time is 7:01, and we will now convene into open session. Would you all please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone, to the February 11th board meeting for the Board of Trustees for Lewisville Independent School District. Okay, I need a motion to consider items discussed in closed session.
I move that all personnel recommendations be approved as presented by administration.
That's motion, Ms. Latham. I need a second. Ms. Duke? All in favor? That is unanimous. Okay, we have no recognitions this evening, so we're going to jump right into the open forum, which I know a lot of people hear about. So, persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees must fill out a speaker's card prior to the meeting. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes. The board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda. I think I have approximately, it looks like about 15 cards. If you, as always, if the person before you has spoken to the matter that you want to speak about and you agree with them, you can, if you don't want to get up and repeat everything, you can just say, I agree with the person before me, or, mention them by name. It saves a lot of people from having to talk, because I know public speaking is like worse than death for a lot of people. So, anyways, moving on. Excuse me, I need my glasses. The first name I have is Liz Perez. Liz, can you just, yeah, I think you, there's a button right there.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Can I start my 3 minutes over again? Oh, okay. Okay. My name is Elizabeth Perez, and I live at 2313 Norwich Street, Flower Mound, Texas. I would like to thank the school board for all the service they do for our children and taking the time out of your busy lives to hear our concerns. You are appreciated. I support rezoning so that all students from each school have the same resources available to them. Specifically, I support proposal number 2. While I appreciate parents' concerns over buses crossing 2499, there are students bused over major thoroughfares every day in our district. Shadow Ridge students are bused across 2499 and 3040. Delay students cross I-35. Rustic Timbers neighborhood students are bused across 1171, and everyone east of 2499 is bused to the high school every day. Is there truly a difference between busing east to west and west to east? Those parents make it work every day. Why can't others? The numbers we have been provided have shown that neither proposal will have any impact on the cost of busing. While each school shows a population decline over the next 10 years, all of the schools will continue to decline, and they will remain equally unbalanced. The ratio will stay the same. Rather than being McCamey, Shadow Ridge, and Forestwood, we need to remember that we are all Flower Mound High School. We are Jaguars. If one school is allowed to continue bleeding, we will all be affected. The student that no longer has reading recovery or proper instruction or decent classroom size will someday be sitting at the high school next to your student, taking the STAR test for English, and his low score will affect Flower Mound High School's exemplary rating. Forestwood is an exemplary campus. It is an excellent school. Forestwood loses teachers and programs every year due to enrollment decline, and this will continue to compromise the quality of education in terms of class size, quality of instruction, and the ability of teachers to meet the students' needs. It has already begun. Eventually, the exemplary status could be lost and will affect how these kids succeed in tests at the high school level. People move to Flower Mound for the schools. We move to Flower Mound for the schools. A negative impact to our high school will hurt us all in terms of education and home values, whereas several expert realtors have stated that busing will not affect home value. Change is hard. There is no perfect solution. We cannot keep everybody happy. All we can do is make the best decision we can with the options we have and give all the kids in Flower Mound a chance to have the same opportunities. I ask that whatever the school board decides, that you at least consider bringing the Vickery students back to Forest Vista and the Garden Ridge area and feed the Garden Ridge students north of 3040 back to Forestwood. I also ask that you consider allowing the new Toll Brothers development, the Preserve, to be zoned for Donald Elementary and Forestwood. While I support Proposal 2, a decision must be made now before students slip through the cracks. If the board decides on Proposal 1, I will respect that. I just ask that a change be made. Thank you for your time and have a nice evening.
Thank you, ma'am. The next name I have is Ellen Templer.
Okay, I'm going to have to talk really fast to get mine in 3 minutes. Okay, so listen up. Okay, can I start over here? All right, I am in support of proposal number 2 with a couple of modifications to the elementary proposal. I'm a parent of 3 children, 2 currently at Forestwood Middle School and 1 a freshman at the high school. I've been an active member of the PTA at Donald and Forestwood for many years and have enjoyed a working relationship with the faculty and staff as a parent, volunteer, and substitute teacher with LISD for the last 5 years, working in a majority of the campuses we are discussing in this issue. It has saddened me over recent years to see the increased difficulty that the teachers and administrators have had to face in trying to maintain the high quality of academic opportunities. Donald is a blue ribbon school. And also struggle to maintain a decent teacher-to-student ratio and decreasing numbers of students and budget dollars that are available to them. Mr. Tickner and Mrs. Wooten have done an excellent job not letting these problems negatively impact the children so far. However, they are not going to be able to continue to do this impossible task forever unless we as parents and a community and you as the school board step up and help them out. The time for tough decisions is now, not 5 years from now. It has already been postponed 2 years ago. The principals at the campuses are asking for help. Shadow Ridge and McCamey are functioning at over 100% functional capacity and Forestwood is barely at over 50%. We must rezone in order to balance enrollment in the campuses and allow future growth for McCamey and Shadow Ridge. The district just invested hundreds of thousands of dollars to upgrade Forestwood. It is fiscally irresponsible for the district to underutilize the resources it currently has, especially in this time of budget crisis. By not rezoning, you as board members are simply not doing your job. Don't let the misconception that because Forestwood has fewer children that we are not facing our own overcrowding issue. Our classrooms are just as crowded due to a high student-teacher ratio, and on top of that, our teachers are having to teach multiple subjects and grade levels instead of being able to do level teaching, thus reducing their effectiveness as teachers and increasing their workloads as compared to their peers. As for the recent resolution that the mayor and town council put forth, I must say that I was appalled at their misuse of office and would like to remind them that they represent the entire town of Flower Mound, not just a few neighborhoods. They even put forth in their own resolution that, and I quote, whereas although the town and LISD are separate governmental entities under Texas state law, according to both the Texas Constitution and the Texas Education Code, LISD as an independent school district is specifically charged with the public education of school-aged children, and as such, it possesses the sole legal authority to establish public school attendance zones. If the city needs to get involved, then they can get involved in the areas that do fall in their jurisdiction, such as safety, traffic, and infrastructure concerns. We must remove the emotion from the equation and look at what is best for Flower Mound as a community and LISD as a district. We cannot allow this attitude of it's okay for somebody else's kids just so long as it's not my kids to continue. It is our duty as parents and citizens to pull together for Flower Mound, not just McCamey, Shadow Ridge, or Forestwood, and work together for all of our children. Remember, folks, we are Flower Mound. Our kids all end up at the same high school. We need to be partners. We need to do our jobs, and the school board needs to do its job, and that is to make tough decisions when tough decisions have to be made, even if they are not popular decisions. When you accepted the position of a school board, you accepted it hopefully in order to do the tough job and make the tough decisions that the position requires. Thank you.
That's the first time I'd used that. Thank you, ma'am. The next name I have is, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce this, John Mrozek, M-R-O-Z-E-K. The M silent, her silent.
Now, there's no way I can do this in one breath like Ellen did. So. All right, I'm not as prepared either, but thank you for allowing me to talk. First of all, my name is John Mrozek, and I'm a Forestwood and a Donald parent. Open disclosure, I'm also on the rezoning committee, but I'm speaking tonight as a parent. It's also important to note that I'm a soccer coach, and my kids that are on my team represent all the various schools in town. I have friends in the community, and my concern is for my family, for my friends, the kids I coach, and the children I don't even know. So what I'm asking tonight is that the board move forward immediately with change to rebalance an imbalanced school system. I'm not here to promote one plan over another. We just have to have change. Change is absolutely necessary when you live with the belief that all children, regardless of which side of town you live in deserve a balanced and fair opportunity. I think we all agree that we don't have to look much farther than the local middle schools to see the imbalance that was already discussed, 50%, 100, and 100. I think that, 3 or 4 things here. First of all, I think that the kids, and I think that regardless of where you live in the city, parents agree on these things, that we deserve the best opportunity for a quality education for our kids. We deserve the best teachers, and we need our teachers to be focused. They need to be, managing things that are their areas of expertise, not being spread around doing multiple different teaching jobs. They need to have the time to do things right as opposed to being rushed and doing the best they can with the resources that they have. I believe that they deserve the same opportunities as everyone else in the city. If change doesn't occur, and the imbalance will only get worse, and the underutilized schools risk losing even more. The things that I feel like they'll be losing, first of all, when you look at resources, you have your teachers, counselors, assistant principals, administration that have been targeted at some, classes, specials, electives, things like reading recovery, drama. I've heard that LEAP's been included in that. These are things that we have to have for our children to make the school, the school system thrive and the community thrive. My fear is that if things get much worse, the community puts schools like Forest Wood at risk of potentially losing their exemplary status over time if things don't change. And that's nothing that the community can afford, much less the kids or the teachers at that school. Thirdly, I believe they deserve to have the same life experiences the school has to offer whether you're at, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in the band halls. I understand that at Forest Wood, we can barely assemble an ensemble, while another school has multiple band teachers. Again, we need to bring parity to this. The drama department, as I hear, is at risk of being dropped due to funding at one of the middle schools, or I'm sorry, one of the elementary schools. Take it outside the school, whether it's on the football field, basketball court, soccer field, or track. One school should not have to have kicked out of them consistently because of an imbalanced student population. It's one thing for children or anybody to lose and to lose fairly, but to lose because something is imbalanced and that's something that can be fixed, I'm hoping that we can do that. Did I just reset that clock or am I off?
You're done, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank
No,
you.
You didn't reset it. Thank you, sir. The next name I have is Sean Henderson. Oops. Pushed it again.
Can you hear me? Hi, my name is Sean Henderson. I have 2 children at Donald. Eventually we'll end up going to Forest Wood, but if that changes between now and then, that's okay. I'm in favor of the rezoning. I think it needs to be done. I just hope the board has the fortitude to stick with it. Don't let these groups of impromptu groups that are putting together groups of lawyers influence you in any way. Don't let the Flower Mound mayor and his group go rogue like they just did with their thing that they just passed. They are highly biased. Their kids all go to McCamey. They don't want any change. The whole idea about this east side and west side Flower Mound, I'm sure you've heard it. They call Forest Wood Forest Hood. They think it's the ghetto side. They don't want their kids going over there. I don't understand what their problem is. My house costs just as much as theirs. I looked at houses in their neighborhood and they wouldn't pass inspections, so I bought on the other side of $24.99. So I don't get what their big deal is. I just hope that you guys, like I said, stick with it. Don't let them push you around. There is a silent majority out there that's supporting this, and you're hearing a lot from the emotionally hijacked minority that seems to get all the press. They're in the papers. And I just think, I would never come to one of these meetings, but I thought it wouldn't affect me. But when I heard what's going on at Donald and Forest Wood with, the loss of programs, I figured it's time. I have to stand up for this. I can't sit around and watch people steal all the resources, all the money going into schools like McCamey, and I just don't understand why a parent who has a child going to McCamey would want them in a portable. 9 portable buildings at McCamey? Really? We live in Flower Mound. Why are our kids in portable buildings when the largest middle school in the Flower Mound High School feeder system is half utilized. Half. You need to get more students over to Forestwood and get that overpopulation at McCamey down. I'm sure those students would like to have lockers back over there, and I'm sure they'd like to have their lunch in the cafeteria and not in the hallways. You know, I've heard they've got ropes down the middle of the hallways so they can keep the traffic flowing. That's ridiculous. That's an overcrowding situation that needs to get fixed. And it's not going to fix itself by waiting 3 or 4 years for the population to go down. It needs to be fixed now. And hopefully you guys will stick with it, make the change. If you do nothing, then the kids over at Forestwood and Donald are going to suffer. They're going to lose more programs and more teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next card I have is Tanya Bausch, B-A-U-S-C-H. You have an intro and everything. That's pretty
I
good.
wasn't nervous enough. Thank you. Hello, my name is Tanya Bausch, and I've been a resident of the Lewisville Flower Mound area for 19 years. I come tonight to voice my concerns about the proposals. I will only briefly but firmly state that the committee formation, representation, and equality was tainted from the beginning. I also want to state for the record that proposal number 2 was not created by the committee. It was created and interjected by someone from the school district. I have personally seen data that was inaccurate, fluctuated often, and sometimes misleading. This should be a huge red flag to all of us. The school board asked our students of Garden Ridge Elementary to move to Shadow Ridge in 2005, and now that the school and our students are finally achieving academic and athletic success, you want to remove them. You want to create a low population at Shadow Ridge that would destroy what it took years to achieve. I cannot see how any of you could sit there and vote to kick out thriving, successful, happy students from Shadow Ridge Elementary to make rooms for homes and children that do not and may not ever exist. If you claim your data is accurate, won't the problem resolve itself? Why the rush to push forward now? What is the hurry? What I know is not going to solve any long-term issue is to continuously ask our children of Garden Ridge Elementary to be the ping pong ball in this game. We are continuously being asked to bounce back and forth. Our children, my children, deserve to have security, predictability, and roots in their community also, just like any other LISD child. Garden Ridge's numbers are not large enough to affect any school negatively, and our numbers are continuing to decline. If this rezoning is a true emergency as you're portraying it, isn't moving us just a Band-Aid? Our numbers aren't large enough. I'm here tonight because I want us all to stay a Flower Mound Jaguar. It's important to me, or else I wouldn't still be here after 19 years. I'm just asking you to make the right decision for everyone, not favoring one community over another. Thank you.
The next card I have, thank you, ma'am. Sorry. The next card I have is Michelle on Lacey Drive. Yes. Be like Oprah, only your first name.
I know, right?
It's okay.
Man, I picked a heck of a first meeting to come to, huh? I'm Michelle Robinson. I've been a Flower Mound resident for 9 years. Got a son in Forest Vista right now who will be going to Forestwood next year. And I'm just here to kind of reiterate what a lot of other people have, that the choice to rezone has to happen. It's been a great need. Unfortunately, now having a son going into Forestwood, I definitely see the need, hearing that opportunities are not going to be available to him like they are at Shadow Ridge or McCamey. So there has to be a rezone that happens now so that not just my child, but many other children are not affected. I constantly hear that, you know, our Forestwood kids aren't allowed to do X, Y, and Z because the attendance numbers aren't there. To me, that's not acceptable. My son deserves every opportunity that the other kids have. As a realtor, I hear arguments all the time. Oh, my home values are going to go down. Oh, this is going to affect us, and blah, 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 to be honest with you. As a realtor, I don't see any data that supports that. I haven't seen numbers that support that. From the last rezone that happened, actually, their home values have increased. So I kind of consider that a wash. So I just ask that you make a decision now. Don't table it again. Just make a decision and don't let another kid slip through the cracks. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The next card is Kendra Wagner.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kendra Wagner, and I have 2 boys that go to Wellington. And I think all that I feel really bad listening to the Forestwood people. It is nothing against Forestwood at all. At all for me. For me, let me read a little bit because I'm kind of frustrated. We should not solve short-term problems with major rezone that will cause significant and difficult long-term consequences for many families. My 2 boys will be rezoned from one crowded McCamey to a then crowded Forestwood. If Wellington in total goes over there, it's at 1,072. So in addition to them being bused from crowded to crowded, now they've lost the opportunity to do after-school activities. I'm a working mother. So if my sons get bused and there's no opportunity for them to get a bus ride home after drama, band, debate, sports, then my kids are going to be on their own to cross 2499. And I would like you guys to see what the traffic is like on 2499. It is a nightmare. And this is just without the additional cars going across with the change. So if you're interested, I've got pictures I can pass to you. I am interested in a balanced middle schools for everybody as well. But the way that the committee was put together was pretty unfair and representation to us as well. And, I personally would like the middle schools to be a balanced, like 85 to 90%. There was a proposal out there that did not make it to the top 2. Less drastic changes for all the schools, not just Wellington, but less drastic, keeping people in their own backyards. When you buy in a community, you want to stay in the community. I mean, that's why you buy where your kids can ride their bike to school. I will see my son drive by the corner that's a living nightmare, which is called Old Settlers and 3040. One of these pictures is that intersection. I would cross that intersection, sit through 9 more lights, cross 2499, and cross Morris to get my boys to school. And I certainly don't want them to have to do that coming home because there's no bus service to allow them to do extra educational and sport activities, which is part of what being in a community like Flower Mound is all about. I mean, if all I wanted was school and straight home, I would be in an urban area. I want them to have that ability to do activities and extracurricular activities and be safe on the way home. So that's all, that's all I'm concerned about is the safety of my boys. Thank you.
Ma'am?
You want to see any pictures? Any interest in the
You can bring them up, sure.
all the additional cars that would be going to that particular intersection.
Thank you, ma'am. The next name I have is Brianna Roundtree.
Hello, my name is Brianna Roundtree. I'm in the 7th grade from SRMS in the LEAP program and in pre-AP classes, also involved in many activities here. I didn't get a chance to speak Wednesday and I have a commitment tomorrow, so I'd like to address my ideas with you today. When I was in 5th grade, the school board wanted to split Garden Ridge to go to Forestwood and Shadow Ridge, and from what I heard from my own classmates was that we just wanted to stay with our friends, no matter which school we ended up at. I know we can and will make new friends, but we were in 5th grade. We were about to hit a huge milestone in our lives, middle school. We needed the friends we had to help us on the first day in what seemed an enormous school to us little, 5th, soon-to-be 6th graders. But here we are again, wanting to affect a larger amount of families. It's not that we have a problem with Forestwood, we have a problem with being sent there our 8th grade year. As a handful of speakers on Wednesday mentioned, we needed time to adjust if we did rezone. Think about old settlers. They have to be split, but at least they know it's coming. They've had time to adjust to this and make friends that will be going with them to the same middle school. I want to put a new proposal up for grabs. Leave everything the same, the way our community liked it. As of now, we are putting neighbor against neighbor, and we need to unite as the Lewisville Independent School District. On Wednesday, most of the committee members nodded in agreement that time itself would resolve our over and under capacity issues, since 7th grade is the peak. Here's another thing. The LISD is spending a load of money for buying iPads and other technology. Why didn't we use that money to repurpose Forestwood, or maybe remodel McCamey to be larger? Because nowadays, most students have their own technology, or use the computers the schools already own and provide that work just fine. Anyways, the reason I'm wearing my cheer uniform is to show you that I'm a Panther, and my brother, who's in 5th grade at Garden Ridge, is a Panther too. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well spoken. Jeff Rogers is the next name.
Hi, my name is Jeff Rogers. First, let me say I support the rezoning proposal 1. It just makes sense to bring them all together. Second, and let me just say, I literally didn't almost come tonight because the vitriol that's been going on at these meetings has been, frankly, untenable. It should be embarrassing to us as parents, as you, as all the community. The way this has been handled has just been gross. I grew up in Denton. When our school was rezoned, we got a letter. And I know I appreciate the transparency, and that's fine, but there comes a point where it's time for y'all to lead and just make a decision, and you're going to upset some people, and they're going to be upset. They're going to be angry at you. Maybe you don't get voted in next time, but you're going to be doing the right thing. So the objective here is for you to lead. Finally, I think the reason why you're hearing from a lot of Flower Mound, or a lot of Forest Vista and Forest Wood people, is because we stayed silent, because we understood the pain that change causes people, and we understood that we just wanted to hang back and let them voice their concerns. But then some of the comments became, well, ignorant and unreasonable. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. You've had to sit through it, and frankly, I've sat through 2 of them now, and it just doesn't make sense. There comes a point where we have to just move forward as a community. It's y'all's job to help bring us together through this. It just is. How often do we look to Washington and say, they're just not leading? It's time for you to lead. Don't be like Washington. I'm asking you to step up and put aside the fear of possibly hurting someone's feelings. And Dr. Woodall, you said it very well at the last Forestwood meeting. You said, we are all Jaguars. You know what? My kid's in 8th grade. She's going into 9th. She's going to be in high school. She's going to be in the band, and that's great. I've got a 5th grader going into 6th grade. If you decide you want to move to Shadow Ridge, okay, I don't care. You know why? Because it's an exemplary school. It's a good school. But it's silly to not use the resources we have. There's a building sitting right there. Take advantage of it. And please, 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 just ignore the clatter. You know what the right thing to do is. You know what the best way to use the resources are. You made a good point. A lot of school districts don't do this. A lot of school districts just send you a letter and say you've moved. And you're right. Nothing wrong with that. It's time to make a change. It's time to make it clear. It's time to do the right thing. So please lead. Please lead through this. Don't put this off. Please don't be like Washington and keep kicking the can. It's not necessary. I know you have the fortitude, and I know you have the backbone to do it. So please do it. Thank you.
Sir. The next name I have is Julie Strickland.
Hi, my name is Julie Strickland, and I am a Forest Vista Elementary parent, and I do not like to public speak. My speech says about the same thing, but I would just like to, oh, did she leave? Oh, you did a wonderful job, and that is wonderful to be able to hear from our students, because you're only hearing from the parents. And as a Forest Vista parent, in kindergarten, I am just now seeing what the underpopulation is doing to our school. And you're not addressing our school, and that's fine, and we're making do, but you are addressing the middle schools, and there is a problem. Flower Mound High School needs 3 strong middle schools. I don't know the right way to do that. You're going to make someone unhappy. I feel for the parents that are upset about busing. I have neighbors who work that their kids are in middle school. I take their kids to dance for them. I help out when they can, and I would hope that other neighbors are going to help out in the first years when these transitions take place. I veered away from my speech, so I'm sorry, but I do agree with everyone who spoke before me for rezoning. I know it's going to be hard. I appreciate what you're doing. I love my town. I love my neighborhood, and I hate what this is doing to us. And it's hard to be a parent and get up here and voice that you want to change someone else's life. That's not what I want to do. And I don't want to make a decision to move someone's child or to make them not go where they want to go. But I want our school to succeed. And if our school, which is Forest Wood Middle School, fails, we will all fail. And I just don't see how that's something we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next name I have is Sarah Mitchell.
All right. There we go. Right? Is it on? Okay. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm a Donald parent, and I'm in favor of rebalancing all the feeder school. I had all the speech planned, but everybody said everything that I already said. But what I wanted to share with y'all is there was something brought up about extracurricular activities and going between $24.99. Well, it's already happening at Donald. We have, my daughter every Tuesday goes to a house in Wellington for an after-school activity. Her and 6 other kids get into 2 cars and they make it happen. We go over there and pick her up. We play sports with kids at Liberty. We play sports with kids from Wellington, and they come over to Donald for our basketball practices on Fridays. It's carpooling. It's getting together and working it out. My husband works, I work. We can't make the after-school activity work between our small group that we're doing after school if it wasn't for the other parents that we're friends with. It's my understanding that that's already happening at Shadow Ridge, too, with the extracurricular activities. The parents have gotten together with carpools and whatnot. We pull together as a community. It's not that far. I grew up in Dallas. I know what busing is. This isn't that extreme. So I want y'all guys to make the right decision. Thank you for putting the committee together, but the school board really needs to make the decision because we can't do it on our own. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The next name I have is Destina Wayland.
Am I on? Okay. My name is Destina Wyland. I live at 2601 Napier Lane. I am a Wellington parent. I am frustrated that our school, Wellington, and our reps did not support us in the last 2 weeks. I am disheartened that all my friends have the support of their principal and their reps that give them guidance and support, and we do not have that. So what did we do? We went to the town. We asked Mayor Hayden, will you help us? Because we don't feel supported in this process. And I was one that asked for all of his help, along with several of my friends, and I do applaud him for that, because for the last 2 weeks, he was the only one that listened to us. I'm not up here to talk about that. I'm here to state 2 questions. I have sent my letters to the boards. I've sent 2 different letters. I would like to know if equal consideration is going to be given for letters written to the board versus those publicly spoken at the committee meetings. I did not get to speak on Wednesday's meeting. I doubt I'll get to speak at tomorrow's. I'd like to know if my letter will hold equal weight and merit regarding that. My second question is, on Friday, February 8th, one of our reps, Vicki Christensen, finally publicly asked for support or changes to Proposal 2 that would make it more appealing for Wellington. That was the first time she has told any of us that she would support us in Proposal 2. If the two proposals are submitted today, how will our inputs be taken into consideration? That's just my questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll have somebody get back to you with the answer because we have all your information here. The next name I have is Elena Johnson.
Good evening. I'm here in support of the rezone of the Flower Mound High feeder schools. My name is Elena Johnson. I'm a Forest Vista parent. You are aware that 2 of the 3 middle schools are over capacity while Forest Wood operates at only 50%. And because of the shocking disparity in the student population, Forest Wood has lost many teachers due to the lack of students. In fact, in 2005 and 6, 8 Forest Wood teachers were eliminated when Shadow Ridge opened. In 2007 and 8, the choir and orchestra staff was reduced by 50%, and currently the choir teacher works half days trying to accomplish what is being done at other middle schools with choir teachers that work full-time. In 2011 and 12, 3 more teachers were eliminated at Forest Wood. Currently, all but 3 teachers of the remaining teachers at Forest Wood are taxed with the responsibility of teaching 2 grades or 2 subjects. The team teach approach, which is found to be very successful in middle schools for the students, cannot operate effectively at Forest Wood with so many teachers wearing many academic hats. Extracurricular activities and enrichment opportunities like choir and theater have been restructured and reshaped dramatically due to the lack of teachers. But despite this, Forest Wood students have maintained an exemplary school status and continue to compete in UIL competitions. Prop 2 is the better rezone option because it focuses on a good, solid solution for the here and now, as well as the future growth projected in Flower Mound. For the here and now, Prop 2 brings Garden Ridge students back to Forest Wood, many of whom live within walking distance to Forest Wood rather than busing them to Shadow Ridge. Prop 2 also takes into consideration the future housing starts that will occur in Lakeside Development and Bella Strata now and in August off Spinks, and that would easily feed into Shadow Ridge. Prop 2 opens Shadow Ridge at 597 students and can handle the anticipated housing growth that will happen. Prop 2 also takes into consideration the future. If there should ever be a 4th middle school necessary near Liberty due to the growth at the west and back portion of Flower Mound, because Prop 2 won't affect as many people in another future rezone. Prop 1 would almost certainly require Wellington to flip-flop back, requiring 2 zones. I would make one modification to Prop 2 and allow the Flower Mound students who attend Vickery to instead attend Forest Vista, so we'll move on with the students that they will be with in Forest Wood rather than say goodbye to the students they will at 5th grade. And lastly, according to LIC core beliefs, number 7 states that education is a shared responsibility of the community. We're going to all have to take a give and take here with these problems that will happen. But it is right to give every student an equal opportunity to enjoy the same programs, education, extracurricular activities. And I urge you, LISD Board, to make a decision for Prop 2, allow for equality, and to act now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next name I have is Chad Edlein, Edlein. Did I pronounce that?
Hello. Thank you. I'm Chad Edline. I'm a parent of a 3rd grade boy at Donald. I want to start off by talking about the mayor. I think the mayor should be ashamed of himself. I'm sorry that the leadership in Wellington didn't step up, but the bottom line is the mayor has no jurisdiction. His job, what he should have said was, I recuse myself from the process. I represent all of Flower Mound, and I have nothing to say about it. That's what he should have said. Secondly, I wanted to draw a parallel between the imbalance and maybe look at it a little bit differently. Look at it as like the UIL. We have a UIL in Texas, found around, I think it was 1918. Every state in the union has 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A classifications. Why do they do that? They don't do it because they're benevolent. They do it because it's fair. They do it because Allen High School is going to kill Italy 99% of the times because Allen has better resources, more money, more facilities, better everything. There is a competitive imbalance. That's why you have classifications. There is also already even a small 4A, big 4A, small 5A, big 5A, because of competitive balance. This is no different. Okay? You are creating within our own community a competitive imbalance. You have the opportunity to balance that. Why not take that opportunity and make it fair for everybody? There is no time to wait. Donald has already lost programs. They've lost reading recovery. So I hope those parents who don't care, I hope their kid didn't need the reading help because it's not there anymore. Like the other gentleman said, you guys have a responsibility. You took the oath to serve the entire community, not just certain pockets. And it just doesn't seem very, very difficult. This whole thing is nothing but a math equation at the end of the day. And I appreciate the emotion, and the parents of Wellington and whatnot, they love their children. They want nothing but the best for their kids. And we respect that. But the bottom line is, it is a math equation. The numbers dictate what the right thing to do is. So what your job is to step up, have some chutzpah, have some backbone, make the tough choice. Period. End of story. And everybody else, they'll live. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next name is Jody Boutelaire. Hey, Jody.
Hello, my name is Jody Boutelier, and my children are at Donald Elementary. We moved into our house in 2006, and I believe that right now is the time to rebalance. And I don't like rezoning, so I've been calling it rebalance because or restructuring. It truly is a balance, an imbalance in what's going on. In some of the schools, the children are not getting the opportunity to participate in sports, volleyball, various other things, because there's not a big enough program. And in other schools, we're losing programs, and they're being forced to cut extras. In Donald, particularly, you've heard a lot about reading recovery. I have to tell you, my daughter could have one of my daughters could have used that a lot this year. It's gone, and if you keep going the way we're going with this and we don't rebalance Donald, we'll lose drama potentially, and that particular child is the biggest drama queen known to man, and she needs that program. So I think what we've looked at over the last 3 years is a temporary Band-Aid in place, and I hope that at some point it'll fix itself. No problem fixes itself. You have to address it. The enrollment declining in one area of town and the over-enrollment in other areas, it's secular. According to some teachers that have been at Donald for forever, 10 years ago, Donald had portable buildings, and it was known as the Village. So you've now moved that to McCamey, and 10 years from now it's going to be at a different school. The whole program that's the way our community is set up. We may be different than the rest of LISD in those respects, but we moved to Flower Mound because we love Flower Mound, we love our areas, and we don't end up selling our houses and moving away. That's the truth. I mean, I've had conversations that said we need people to move into the east side. There are no homes in the east side that are just sitting vacant. That's not the problem. The problem is that the equation that figures out load balancing doesn't work for our area and where our schools are sitting. And unfortunately, we all want our kids to go to the community school right by our house, and it's not feasible as much as we'd all like that to be. In the coming years, if we don't go ahead and rebalance, the drama thing's going to go. Okay, so there's no easy answer, but I'd ask you to evaluate the proposals at hand. And if it is a safety issue, which I do believe it is, on 2499 crossing that area, then that's the town's responsibility. And we force us all back to the town to make them address the needs to making it a safe access for our children, similar to what you have at Forest Vista with the walking trails that go underneath the freeway. Or the road, there is an answer. We just have to find it as adults. Perhaps creating a dedicated 1 mile radius around the school as a no busing zone, and everybody else gets stacked. I mean, I was just looking for suggestions that might work. However, if this board decides to halt all discussions and to start the process over, I would ask you to freeze current staffing, current staffing, and so that Donald doesn't lose any more programs.
Thank you, ma'am. The next card is Helen Davidson.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Helen Davidson, and I'd like to take a moment to thank Ms. Latham for replying to my email. Thank you very much. I'm a proud parent of 3 children at Donald Elementary, and I strongly support the rezone to balance the student population at the elementary and middle schools. The rezoning will not only alleviate the problems with the overcrowding at McCamey, but will also increase enrollment at Forestwood. I, for one, do not want to see any more programs cut at Donald or Forestwood. One of LISD's core beliefs is that genuine transformation requires disruptive innovation. This belief speaks directly to the district's need to rezone now. As a high school teacher for 10 years in Plano ISD, I have experienced firsthand the many negative aspects of an overcrowded classroom. The students and staff all suffer as a result. I am proud that LISD is committed to excellence and that the well-being of all students is put first. It is also my understanding that upcoming 5th and 8th graders will be allowed a waiver by LISD to stay at their current campus during this transition. I trust that the school board will vote in favor of the rezone in order to provide the best learning environment for all students in LISD. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Kelly Spirit.
Hello, thank you for letting us talk. I did not come prepared as all of my fellow parents, but I am a parent of a Forest Vista, a Forestwood Middle School, and a Flower Mound High School. And it did hurt when I went to the meeting last week. I went to the meeting yesterday, and the atmosphere within the room was just shocking that we were all Flower Mound parents, and yet here we are put in this position. I do not enjoy to speak, so everyone's prepared speeches has spoken for me. I am for the rezoning. I do want Forestwood to have the opportunity to get the classrooms filled. I do feel that the academics are suffering. The teachers are having to cover so many different bases. The principals are doing a fantastic job. Forest Vista, I know, is having programs cut as well. And I don't feel that that's acceptable for our children to have to suffer. I do feel very sad for the children on the west side of 2499. I'm sad that the parents are getting so upset by what is happening. But, you know, when your children come home and they have heard I guess, the origin of where they're coming from, the schools, and the names that they're being called, that I don't accept. We are all Flower Mound, and they should accept that. My children are in great programs. I love LISD. We've been here in Flower Mound for 13 years. I would not change that. And it really is very sad that there is this rift that's coming between all of us. And this west side, east side, we should come together as one. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you to the committee members, and I hope that you will go forward with it.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Mike Brown.
I'd say you all are going to earn your money over the next 2 months, but you don't earn any money. So you just have to take some pride in the process, I guess. Somebody before me represented this as a simple math equation, and I hope I can put a little bit of a different twist on that. There's certainly some math involved, but there's people's lives involved here, and I would encourage you guys to view it as something far more than a math equation. There isn't anybody in this room that doesn't want a great education for all these kids. Forestwood, McCamey, Shadow Ridge are awesome schools, and we ought to be proud of all of them. But But this process, and some of you have heard me say this before, this process has really divided this community. And the way we've gone about this, although with great intentions to get community input, I think has created just a lot of flaws and a lot of this tension. So what I'm here to do is ask you to do something I think you guys are poised to do already, and that is, with respect, take the input from the committee, thank them for their support, and then move past that. Start from scratch. Get creative. I encourage you to look at not the goal of rebalancing things and making things equal, but rather finding the minimalist approach you can take that achieves a goal that gets the Forestwood School District and school zone the programs that they need to be a great school and continue to be a great school as well. That it's my hope that that doesn't require you to pull people who live right next to McCamey or other schools away from the community that they've become such a part of and bring them 4 miles to a different school, put them on a bus, and so on. So my appeal to you is to get creative, redefine your goals in this to something that achieves just that which we can live with, that we can move on with, not to rebalance these schools and try to make life equal, because we all know that that has ramifications that extend well beyond. I want to leave you with 2 things. I heard somebody up here talk a bit about extracurricular and so on. I want to read from you. There was a UCLA study done in 2002 that talked about, among other things, the disadvantages experienced by students bused to school to relieve overcrowding. I would put in there to relieve school utilization issues too, but it cites, I won't read it here entirely, but it cites 4 things. 1 is impediments to parental involvement, 2, limited access to after-school activities, 3, disincentive to enroll in kindergarten, doesn't really apply here, and 4, poor achievement. There are disadvantages when you get pulled from a neighborhood school where you can walk, in some cases you can walk there in a minute and a half, and have to go to a school on a bus that's much further away. I implore you guys to reconsider those proposals in light of those disadvantages. Find the balance between achieving the goals that we need for Forestwood and making sure we do it in a way that doesn't cause unnecessary pain. Can I leave the full article with the committee?
And the, thank you, sir. And the last card I have is for Jeannie Hoffman. Okay. Oh, to hit it again.
Am I good?
You're good.
As a parent of 2 LIS students, I have been a resident of Flower Mound for off and on for 18 years on both sides of Flower Mound. LASD, I appreciate your willingness to hear the parents' perspective, so I'm here tonight to share my perspective. The rezoning got my attention, but how our money is being spent has me concerned. I ask that you are fiscally responsible with our taxpayer dollars. I do not believe that every child needs an iPad. With the reallocation of $40 million to technology, I worry this is a waste of our money. I'm not saying don't invest in technology, but be conservative. Why not use banks of iPads instead of giving one to every child? In my opinion, it is a teacher that can inspire our children, not a computer screen. In addition, I wonder why we are spending $20 million at 2 campuses to build basketball arenas. I know every kid wants an iPad and an arena to play in. I just wonder if it's truly a need. I ask when you're making decisions about rezoning, I want to encourage you to do no harm. The rezoning of elementary schools should not impact schools functioning at capacity. Moving kiddos from functioning schools is unnecessary, and you will only be robbing Peter to pay Paul. The concerns that Donald, Forest Vista, and Forestwood are having with underutilization will only be moved to other schools. The only other elementary schools that are over capacity and needing rezoning are Gardenwood and Wellington. Both can be fixed with either rezoning a few kids from one school to Forest Vista or movement of special programs like Spanish immersion from Wellington to Donald that are below capacity. You can and should make that decision and not allow the overutilization to continue. I want you to know that I do understand you have inherited someone else's bad decisions in relation to our middle schools. I also know that rezoning needs to occur for the middle schools, and I know it will be a difficult task. I haven't figured out the answer to that yet, and I've tried and will keep trying, as some of your committee members are painfully aware. I do believe that allowing kids to finish their tenure at the current middle school should be allowed regardless of their current grade level for this rezoning. Finally, I encourage you to be fair and fiscally responsible in your decision-making. I also ask that you create and share a master plan to share with our community so that we can see what your long-term vision for Flower Mound as a whole is. Thank you.
Ma'am. Thank you all for the participation tonight. Thank you for everyone being cordial. We really appreciate that. Moving on to our informational items. Dr. Haynes, LISD Strategic Design.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Ms. Karen Permetti will be making the main presentation tonight.
Good evening, Board. Starting in September, a subcommittee of the Strategic Design team, including 2 students, gathered to begin our dialogue about the LISD brand. And I would like to take this opportunity to share the names of the committee. Some may be here in the audience, and I know some have other commitments. Those committee members are Dr. Ara Minison, Suzette Snyder, Albert Boyd, Steve Southwell, Leanne Bandy, she was here earlier, Johnny Foster, Ashley Wood, who's a student, and Catherine Cotton, who's also a student. And both are Career East students in Ms. Harmon's class, so they were able to contribute a lot of great ideas. But overall, based upon our dialogue, the subcommittee agreed that our district strategic design is LISD's brand. In essence, it's our promise to our community. Facilitated by a locally owned firm, Maple Leaf Creative. She has children in the Lewisville High School feeder pattern, as a matter of fact. Facilitated the process. The team researched quality brands, discussed how brands are fulfilled, as well as identified key stakeholders and audiences within LISD. The subcommittee worked in teams to draft 30-second speeches about the LISD brand and shared them to the group. And based upon these speeches, a new tagline was developed along with 2 logo concepts. And I'm unveiling the new tagline right now. Real innovation, limitless opportunity. Beginning tomorrow, the subcommittee, or excuse me, beginning Wednesday, the subcommittee invites the entire LISD community to vote on which logo concept they believe reflects the LISD brand. And the voting will last through March 5th. At the March Board of Trustees meeting, the subcommittee will unveil the new logo to the entire community. And to help spur our community's thinking on the LISD brand, here's a brief video outlining the committee's work. You can, with bated breath, on Wednesday, you can visit www.lisd.net and see the two concepts, and we can't wait to hear your input.
Thank you, Ms. Pernetti. Moving on to number 2, emergency preparedness. Police and Fire Chiefs, Dr. Rogers.
Thank you, Ms. Kyer, Board. I always have to follow productions like that, but no, I didn't put a video together. I'm sorry. But this is an information item only, so no further actions required. But I did want to update you on some emergency preparedness issues. For example, since this past spring and summer, we've been at work trying to accomplish a lot of things. For instance, we've expanded the use of AEDs to even our marching bands, making sure that not only do our classrooms as far as halls and all of our schools have AEDs for our kids in case of emergency, but marching bands, we actually, for the first time ever, last year began doing AED drills with staff. We have improved our communication system thanks to Ms. Permetti and her group with using SkyAlert, Facebook, Twitter, and other means. We have provided every campus with a NOAA weather radio in case of bad weather. Some campuses previously had them, some didn't. We've made sure every campus has them. We've purchased, with your approval, things like mobile communication hotspots where if technology goes down as far as the wireless in a campus, they can use those mobile hotspots to still access the internet. We've had hardwired telephones put in every campus and every facility. As we saw last spring with the bad weather, sometimes our mobile devices don't work. Not required, but we have asked that all principals complete a Federal Emergency Management Agency training. We've reviewed all of our emergency plans, and technology is working to upgrade and to consolidate all of our surveillance cameras to where it's not multiple systems but one platform. Those are just some of the things that we've been working on for the last 6 to 9 months. What I really wanted to talk to you about, though, is in light of the terrible tragedy at Sandy Hook, Mr. Ellington put together a meeting with all the police and fire chiefs on January 17th. All of them were in attendance, and we appreciate there were actually 21 representatives from police and fire departments, and then there were 7 LISD reps. Dr. Waddell spoke, certainly talked about his goal to have a long-term partnership with these agencies. We presented, and they already have, but we went over the process on how we develop emergency plans. We talked about streamlining communications, trying to coordinate large emergency drills. We already have one of those set for Arbor Creek in the Carrollton area where we'll have a large contingency and we'll learn from those, but creating large agency drills where maybe multiple agencies, between 2 different municipalities work together. One of the questions that we did want to ask them was about the notion of arming school personnel. Now, we certainly have our belief that that's not what we want to be doing, but it was very important that every police chief unanimously said that is not what they believe is the best action to take as far as school security. So it was good for us to get a consensus on that, in agreement with what we already believed. We are continuing to work with our emergency operations planning team, which we have in operation, and one of the issues that we did have some discussion that day about was possibly creating some type of position of a security and safety coordinator where it's one person that coordinates surveillance cameras, SROs, all the different parts to the puzzle instead of multiple departments within our school district working on that. So I'm sure you may hear about that in the future.
Thank you, sir. You want to ask a question, Ms. Latham?
Dr. Rogers, how many of our campuses currently have resource officers, and a resource officer is an employee of that community's police department that we share resources? Am I explaining that right?
You're doing a pretty good job. We have school resource officers, which we split with the local police departments, and all of our high schools have an SRO assigned to them. And then most of our middle schools, there may be one SRO split between like 3 middle schools. Our 2 middle schools in the colony do not have an SRO split with them. And so those are things that we're looking at as far as how to utilize and use their service in a different way.
And another question that I had was, you've talked about how all of the campuses were given weather radios. What about access to police scanners in their community? For instance, gas station on 3040 has a robber, and how do they alert the campuses in that area to lock the doors that we've got a crazy person on the loose?
The police departments communicate, I promise you, in a very rapid way to our campuses as far as lockdowns and what's needed. So probably quicker than a secretary sitting there listening to a police scanner. I promise you it happens pretty rapid.
Ms. Carter.
Welcome, ma'am. Okay.
Can I ask a question, please? Sorry, Ms.
You
Carter.
may.
I apologize. I'm glad you guys addressed the security officers arming teachers, and because I think our teachers are there to educate and not to panic and put themselves in that type of position. And I know our district has improved over the years since even 9/11. And tell me, what was the feeling of that meeting with our administration about how we're moving forward? Because I think it's something that when the public listens to this meeting, it will make them feel better. Because that's a question we get asked. What are you guys doing? People don't know that we have, the security doors. And so what was the atmosphere, if I can ask?
Yeah, I think there's been a good working relationship already between all the agencies. We certainly appreciate all of our municipalities as far as their fire and police departments. We work closely with them, that we always have. We've made a lot of gains, and we'll continue to look at ways that we can improve. And you can't rest on what you did last year. You've got to continue to look to improve, and I certainly believe that we've been doing that, and certainly that's the direction that Dr. Waddell expects us to move.
Do we talk about how often we're going to have these meetings?
We did. We plan to have them at least twice a year. But there are some other subcommittees that will work with, some of their emergency folks that aren't police chiefs and fire chiefs that we'll meet with on a more regular basis on particular specific issues.
One more thing I'd like to kind of reemphasize, by the way, that all the chiefs thought this was a great meeting. Another thing that's going to happen is we're going to look at every single campus again with the departments. I think the most important thing is especially when you have large emergencies, it's not just one department that responds. And they all agree with that. So we plan to work together and plan together in a way where all the departments are participating. So if there's an emergency in the colony, for example, Carrollton, Frisco, Lewisville, at least, those departments would probably respond to that. So I think a real benefit is us all together, sitting in the same room, talking, working together. The plans such as Arbor Creek that Dr. Rogers mentioned, and there'll be others as well around the district, will be joint department operations, not just one or two. So I think that's a huge deal. The fact that we're in the room talking, sharing ideas, bringing up problems. There was an interesting issue of locking doors inside the building.
where you had a perspective from the fire department and then a different perspective from the police department, those are worthwhile because you can go, okay, how do we solve that? So sometimes you'll have those competing things, even though you're inside the same, you have two departments that are responsible for emergencies and crisis, and yet they have a different perspective. One being, how do we have access to a classroom, for example, and the other is we've got to have fire security. So that brings up a problem, and one that needs to be discussed. But the good thing is everybody saw that and we go, okay, we can figure a way to solve that. So I think that was everybody thought that was a great meeting, and as Dr. Rogers said, we're going to continue that on a regular basis, as well as the sub-chief levels. There will be ongoing meetings going there.
All set? Moving on, report from the Flower Mound Boundary Committee. Dr. Rogers.
Board, I know you don't know anything about this topic. Really, first off, would like to recognize there are some committee members here, and I can just tell you, having worked with these folks since October 25th, the first meeting, they have put in countless hours, and so if they are here, if we could please recognize committee members, I'd appreciate it. As everyone knows, we do have an event tomorrow night. I do want to make it clear the location of that has been changed. As you've been told, the fire marshal expressed some concerns this morning regarding having it at McCamey, and so it has been moved to LHS Harmon, and we're all set with that, so we can certainly host more people. Then after that, having served with the committee, I will tell you that these folks have taken their job extremely serious. I mean, I get copied on all their emails, and there had to be 100 of them just this weekend, and they are constantly looking for input and trying to think about, should we look at this, make this modification. And so I know that they take their job serious, and we will meet one other time after the public or the community input meetings to then finalize the two proposals. So we appreciate the opportunity, and that's really all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to summer hours. Dr. Burnett.
Thank you, Ms. Kyer. As we've done in the past, we present this to you as an information item. It requires no further action on the part of the board. We just simply let you know that what our summer hours are going to be, and beginning on June 14th or the week of June the 10th, we will begin having closing on Fridays. We've found that carries a lot of benefits for the staff, as well as provides some savings on our utility costs.
Thank you, sir. That was our last informational item, so we're moving on to the discussion items. Monthly financials, bond report, quarterly investment report, and new construction report. Dr. Burnett.
We do not have a quarterly investment report this month, but we do have in your packet the financial reports, as well as the bond report and the report of new construction. If you have any questions about those, we'll certainly we'll try to answer those.
I have a quick question about the on the upgrades we're doing for the infrastructure, and so the schools that we have for the 1-to-X implementation. I'm assuming that we are making sure that the schools that we have set up to begin implementation are also already done in terms of the yes, thanks.
Yes. Yes, the schools that are on the priority list for the 1-to-X have to have the wireless infrastructure before we can implement that.
Right, and when will the next round of implementation begin?
We're asking you to approve tonight I think it's phase 1 or 1A of the next round of campuses to be to be wired for or to be, create the infrastructure for the wireless access points.
Right, and are any of those campuses in that next phase of one-tax implementation? Do you see what I'm saying?
I'm sorry.
Well, so I know we have our first 3 schools, and then we're going to have our next rollout that I think, Barbara, aren't we starting that
Yeah.
before the school year ends? And so, I mean, like, for instance, I know, particularly our elementary campuses don't have that yet. I mean, I know we're not complete with all of that, right? Oh, okay. So there's nobody else happening this year with the exception, I mean, we have our initial implementation, but we won't do another implementation until the beginning of. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Burnett? Okay, quarterly report from the Bond Oversight Committee.
We have Dr. Mark Welding here from the Bond Oversight Committee to present that report, and I think Mr. Ed Pete is also here from the Bond Oversight Committee as well. And I believe there's a PowerPoint to be loaded or has already been loaded.
Evening, my name is Mark Welding, and there is a PowerPoint that goes through some of these numbers that I'm going to go through. To start out with the 2008 bond construction projects as of November 30th, 2012, you can see that the total funds were $410,912,851, and total expenditures is right there, and the budget remaining when it's all said and done is $1,276,197. The projects that were finished as of November 30th, 2012 are elementary number 40, Lewisville Elementary School, elementary number 41, Peters Colony Elementary School, LHS 9th and 10th grade center, Marcus Stadium, the Hebron 9th grade center, Flower Mound High School, Hebron High School, the Colony High School, and LHS locker rooms, and the Lewisville Learning Center. The original budget allowance for those projects was $199,449,512, and six of the 10 projects came under budget, and 4 of them came over budget, and there was a savings of $46,516,996. So I think that we agreed that they did a great job. Either they over budgeted or they did a great job on saving money. At the last meeting, we discussed the reallocation of these savings and the remaining bond authorization from the 2008 bond elections. In alignment with the district's strategic design goal number 1, in which it states that we are challenged to provide all learners with a safe, nurturing, inclusive, and flexible learning environment. Along with the facilities assessment, we believe that the money should be reallocated as follows. And I think, is there a slide for that too? Yeah. Replace Camey Elementary for $21.5 million. Replace Griffin Middle School for $43.2 million. Additional allocation to technology, $40 million. And additional allocation to facility services, renovations, existing campuses, $55.3 million. At the last meeting, we've had a lot of discussions on these arenas. It's been every meeting that I've attended, I think. I'm going to tell you that there's members on this committee that just totally disagree that we should not spend this money on these arenas. After reviewing the input from some people from Hebron High School, some parents, administration from Marcus, administration from Flower Mound High School, we decided that if you're going to build something, the arena would probably be the better option rather than the 2 gymnasium concept, because the people from Hebron High School said the 2 gymnasium concept doesn't work. So we agreed that if you're going to build it, then the arena would probably be a better concept. So, but once again, there are people on the committee that disagree with spending this money. On February 4th, we had a meeting concerning Farmont High School Sports Complex, and there's been a lot of discussion at the last meeting, the prior meeting, and the sports complex that's being built on Peters Colony. The meeting was attended by myself, Ed, and Missy. It occurred at the Farmont High School Library. There was 2 concerned citizens that we met with, and basically what we told them was that we would convey all this information to the board, and that's what I'm doing. The first thing that he wanted and she wanted was that they would like a further explanation of why the 9th grade building was moved from the west side to the east side. This required the purchase of land and relocation of the tennis, softball, and baseball facilities. The second thing, they would like to have been informed of the placement of the new sports complex on Peters Colony after the land was purchased. And the final thing is they believe, and once again, this is all their statements, they believe that the east side location of the 9th grade building required the district to waste $9.5 million in locating sports facilities that were only in need of reconditioning. And once again, these are the statements. I said I would pass them on to the board. So that's the end of the report. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Wellen. And you too, Ed. The support. Boy, Dr. Rogers, they had a PowerPoint. I'm just saying. Thank you all very much. Moving on to our action items. Consider approval of resolution regarding voucher, taxpayer savings grants, tax credits, and other mechanisms that reduce public education funding. I need a motion, please.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution regarding voucher, taxpayer savings grants, tax credits, and any other mechanism that reduces public funding. Dr. Burton.
Okay, motion, Ms. Latham. Second, Ms. Foudy. It's okay. Any discussion? Questions, concerns? Oh, Ms. Latham.
I would just like Ms. Foudy or Ms. Sheffield to talk about how, we have a process that things are introduced on our board agenda, and then they're discussed, and then they're decisioned. And this is one of those exceptions, and I would just like for y'all to kind of talk about how this is an exception, just so that we're clear to our constituents.
Well, this is an issue that is timely because we have a legislative session taking place now, which happens every 2 years in the state of Texas. And in our legislative agenda that we passed, vouchers are concerned because there's only so much money in the pot for education. And if the state is to approve vouchers, then that's less money for your schools here. The money leaves. And the other reason why we're bumping this up is because this is an item that school boards around the state, this legislative agenda, school boards around the state, it's coming from TASB, which is the Texas Association of School Administrators, and then the Texas Association of School Boards are supporting us as well. So when we sent some constituents actually went to Austin to talk with many groups around the state. There were about 30, I believe, that are all in support of public ed, and for our legislative body in Austin doing something to support our public schools, increase funding, making it a priority this year. And all of the items that were in our legislative priorities we passed last month were being covered by one or more of those groups. And in that meeting in Austin, and Tricia was there, so I'll let her elaborate, this agenda was put forth as something that school boards around the state are discussing, and we felt that it was something our board needed to possibly embark on as well.
It's very similar to the resolution we passed on high-stakes testing in the sense that it's a way for us to send a public message to those in Austin. And again, as that group was meeting, it was again, a group of very like-minded individuals in terms of their support for public education, in terms of their common feelings against high-stakes testing and the impact that has on education and the negative impact that reduced funding has had on education as well. And there have been some bills introduced that include vouchers or some form of that. And so this is, again, this is just a way, I mean, it certainly, we felt it was in line with our legislative priorities, and as a district and as a community, we wanted to be very vocal and send that message to Austin that as a district, we are not in support of that. So that's kind of where all of this originated, again, from that meeting. And so Ms. Bowdy and I had just asked that it be put on the agenda because we wanted to send a clear message from our district that we don't support that legislation as well. So,
At this point, would you like to read it into the minutes?
sure. Or do you want to do it? Oh, you want to do it?
Oh, thank you, Ms. Fowley.
Okay. Resolution, vouchers, taxpayer savings, grants, tax credits, and other mechanisms that reduce public education funding. Whereas Article 7, Section 1 of the Texas Constitution requires that the Texas Legislature establish and make suitable provisions for the support and maintenance of an efficient system of public free schools. Whereas in 2011, during the 82nd regular session, the Texas Legislature reduced public education funding by $5.4 billion. Whereas public school districts are subject to stringent accountability standards. Whereas school choice already exists in the Texas public school system. Whereas vouchers, taxpayer savings grants, and tax credits eliminate public accountability and do not provide all parents and children with school choice. Whereas vouchers, taxpayer savings grants, and tax credits have not been proven effective in improving student achievement and closing the achievement gap. Whereas diverting public money away from public schools is not only an inefficient use of scarce resources, but also steals money away from an inadequate, unconstitutional system. And whereas vouchers, taxpayer savings grants, and tax credits will not guarantee a competitive educated workforce to meet the demands of employers in Texas. Now therefore be it resolved that the Lewisville ISD Board of Trustees calls on the Texas Legislature to reject all attempts to divert public dollars away from public schools in the form of vouchers, taxpayer savings grants, tax credits, or any other mechanisms that have the effect of reducing funding to public schools.
Thank you, ma'am. Does anybody else have any questions regarding this?
Ms. Kyer, I just think it's important that we point out to the public that the voucher system that is being presented by those in Austin and around the state, this is one key factor, and that is holding those other non-public school entities, whether they're a private school or a charter school or whatever, they're not held to the same standards, and they're not held to the same mandates, and they're not held to the same standardized testing that public schools are held to. And they also do not have to educate every child. They pick and choose the kids that they're going to educate. And I don't think that's very clear to the public. I don't think the public realizes that they're not held to the same standards and the same regulations that public schools in Texas are.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other comments? Oh, okay. Ms. Sheffer.
Now I would encourage the community at large to also contact your legislators and tell them how you feel, because I think that it is one thing coming from a organized group and body, but I think the power lies in the individual's voice. And I think there is much momentum taking place in Austin and around the state in terms of testing, and I'm encouraged to see that. And I hope we've had a lot of activity lately and a lot of passion among our community regarding the choices that we make in education, and I hope that same passion and energy is fueled into seeing some changes made, because I think that we are on the cusp of making some really significant movement in the way we educate our children. But we're also in very much, I think we're in some jeopardy if some meaningful changes don't take place. And so, anyway, I'll jump off my soapbox. But there are many resources out there if you are uncertain about what it means to have a voucher, what it means about school choice, what high-stakes testing, the impact of that in the classroom. There are many avenues of education that you can find and educate yourself on, and I'd be happy to share some of those with you. So.
Well, it's a good soapbox for you to be on. I appreciate all of your hard work, you and Ms. Foudy, in traveling, because it takes more time away from your family, too, so we appreciate it. So, that being said, any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. Ms. Arnold? Moving on, can I have a motion for action item number 2? Consider approval of adoption of order calling a 2013 Board of Trustee election for places 3, 4, and 5. I need a motion, please.
I move to consider the approval of adoption of order calling a 2013 Board of Trustee election for places 3, 4, and 5.
That's the motion, Ms. Sheffield. Second, Mr. McDaniel. Any questions? We not have it? No, just kidding. Carry on. No. Any? I was trying to be funny. Any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. Could I please have a motion for action item number 3?
Make a motion for approval of joint election agreement and contract between Lewisville ISD and Denton County Elections Administrator for the May 11th, 2013 trustee election.
I have a motion, Ms. Duke. Second, Ms. Foudy. Any questions or concerns for Dr. Burnett? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. I need a motion for action item number 4, please.
I move to consider approval of order authorizing the issuance of unlimited tax refunding bonds, Series 2013A, establishing sale parameters, authorizing the execution of a bond purchase agreement and an escrow agreement, approving an official statement, and enacting other provisions relating to the subject.
I have a motion, Ms. Foudy. Second, Ms. Latham. Dr. Burnett?
Thank you, Ms. Kyer. We have a fairly comprehensive package that this is the first part of refunding 3 sets of bonds that are eligible for refunding, and then getting ready for a new bond sale at the end of the month. We have Mr. Martin here tonight to talk a little bit more about it, and we also have our bond counsel, Chuck Kobdish, with McCall Parkhurst, who is also available to answer questions. So I'd like to invite John to speak to it, to talk about the specific items, with your permission of the board, to talk about the specific parameters as well as the precise amounts that we're going to ask you for consideration of approval in the 3 different sets.
Thanks, Dr. Burnett. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here tonight to go through 4 different items here and ask for your approval for a parameter type of sale. We've done this in the past. In fact, the last couple of bond sales, you all have done this, and it seems to streamline the process in terms of being able to get to the market at the absolute best time and pick and choose, subject to approval of certain thresholds that have to be made, and then turning that ultimate approval over to the administration so long as those thresholds are met. We have looked at a number of different options given the bond market and where interest rates are these days, and we looked at up to $200 million of existing debt that the district has that may be eligible for refunding, bonds that were holding interest rates in between 4.5% and 5%. Some of them we can call out from the bondholders sooner than others. The ones that are further out we would have to escrow for. So you've seen your investment report. You can't get much money in terms of your investment these days. So you end up in a negative position. So we're, even despite lower interest rates, because you can't get to those bonds for a number of years, sometimes the deal just doesn't work. However, there's a bunch of them that do, in the amount of about 70 million bucks. So ultimately, we're hoping to go out in the market tomorrow with these three issues, and the early indication is the net present value savings, the savings to you, net of everything in today's dollars, is over 5 million bucks. So very significant. That will then, the reason that we then are looking at doing the new money piece later is because we wanted to be able to see where our savings is before we went out with the new issue, because what we're doing is we have the ability to get more projects on and still maintain the lower tax rate that was promised to the voters. Remember that we were talking to the voters next year. I believe we're in the voter information, we had looked at a tax rate of about 46 cents. We think that we're going to be able to keep that around 45 cents, and that's our goal. So this will allow us to get, the refunding will allow us to get more project dollars into the construction fund at a lower tax rate. It's a good deal. So Mr. Kobdish, our wonderful bond lawyer, will talk about, in a stack of documents for Ms. Kyer and Ms. Fody, so hang around. We'll have talk about the parameters involved in each of the four pieces, if you don't mind, Chuck.
I have a steamer trunk outside with the rest of the papers to be signed. As John pointed out, this is a process that the board has been through on many occasions when you're talking about selling bonds, and that is that the board passes the bond order, which establishes or authorizes the issuance of the bonds and establishes certain parameters, delegating to either or the superintendent and the chief financial officer the authority under those parameters to go ahead and consummate the sale of the bonds. And that allows for flexibility that you otherwise would not have. In the past, before we had this process, quite frankly, we would be selling the bonds actually tonight, regardless of what the market conditions were. I mean, it's either now or you had to postpone it to another board meeting. Well, with the legislative changes several years ago, we don't have to do that anymore. We can actually delegate the authority to sell the bonds, and that allows you to set the parameters that you would have looked at anyway or imposed anyway, but you can hit the market at the right time then, as opposed to being forced to accept whatever the market is on the date of the board meeting. For the going up to number 4, item 4, for the 2013 bond issue, refunding, the parameters are that the original principal amount will not exceed $40,460,000. The final maturity will not exceed August 15, 2023. The maximum true interest cost shall not exceed 2.25%. And that must produce a net effective present value savings of at least 5%. And as Mr. Martin was pointing out, you're well within those parameters at this time. For the 2013 B, which is item 5, the parameters are the aggregate principal amount shall not exceed $53,960,000. The final maturity shall not exceed August 15, 2027. The maximum true interest cost shall not exceed 3.25%. And the refunding, again, must produce a net present value savings of at least 5%.
Excuse me, Mr. Kobdish, you might point out that this, in the Series B, those are not guaranteed by the Permanent School Fund.
Good point. In fact, you may wonder why we're looking at 4 different bond issues. Well, 3 of them are refundings, and one of them is a new money bond issue. The A series that is going to be PSF guaranteed, like you have done mainly in the past. The B series will not be PSF guaranteed because it's not eligible for PSF guarantee. And then you're looking at the C series, which is different because it's actually going to be a taxable bond issue. to the extent that the market parameters are met. And when I say taxable, the first two, A and B, are issued on the basis that the interest payable to the purchaser of those bonds is tax exempt. The C series will not have that benefit, which means it'll have a little higher interest rate, as you might suspect, because nobody gets the tax exempt benefit of it. And then the D series, of course, is a new money issue, and that will be PSF guaranteed like all your other, or most of your other new money issues have been. Anyway, the C series, the parameters for it are principal amount not to exceed $107,995,000. Final maturity not to exceed August 15, 2023. Maximum true interest cost should not exceed 2.5%. And the refunding must produce present value savings of at least 4.5%. Again, keeping in mind that it is a taxable issue, you would not expect to generate the same level of savings that you would in the tax exempt bond issues. And then, of course, the new money issue, the parameters are a maximum principal amount of not to exceed $88 million, final maturity not to exceed August 15, 2029, and that the true interest cost shall not exceed 3.25%. And keeping in mind that the parameters that are set out in the bond orders are, by and large, maximums. If in fact the market should just go crazy and you know you could actually issue the full amount of those bonds, you'd only be doing that because you get, I mean, you're looking at significant savings. Well, that's not anticipated, but at the same time, you want the flexibility to go as high as you can in terms of being able to capture those savings if they're available. And so, you know, you just have to kind of react to what the market is at the time. And I think John indicated that they're going to try to hit the market here pretty quick. So we'll just see how it goes. And Dr. Waddell and Dr. Burnett will be looking at the parameters to determine whether or not they want to pull the trigger on those refundings and the new money when the time comes. Okay? Answer any questions for you.
Yeah, I have a question. The parameters that we have in our packet, a little bit different.
They would, yeah, they would be different. The numbers were moving around. And I'll let John explain what basically, I mean, there's actually two bond issues that the numbers got moved around, so on and so on.
The B and C issue, Ms. Latham, is significantly smaller than what the not-to-exceed amount in the parameter is, and that is because the issue that many bonds does not make economic benefit to the district right now. There is some savings in it, but we talked about the bonds being callable when we could get to them, and it produces too much negative arbitrage. So you're upside down, and so we're going to put those bonds back on the shelf when it's more economically feasible to do them as we get closer to the call date. So we think that we're better off waiting on those bonds than to do them now, because the negative arbitrage, the opportunity cost, is more than the savings, if that makes sense.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, we're going to have to vote on these separately. So we do have a motion on action item number 4. Motion by Ms. Foudy, second by Ms. Latham. So any questions regarding number 4? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. Moving on, I need a motion for action item number 5.
Ms. Kyer, I consider approval for order authorizing the issuance of unlimited tax refund bond series 2013B, establishing sale parameters, authorizing the execution of a bond purchase agreement and an escrow agreement, approving an official statement, and enacting other provisions relating to the subject.
Okay, I have a motion, Ms. Latham. I need a second, Ms. Sheffield. Any further questions regarding that sale? Being none, all in favor? That is unanimous. I need a motion, please, for action item number 6.
Madam President, I make a motion to consider approval of order authorizing the issuance of unlimited tax refunding bonds, Series 2013C, establishing sale parameters, authorizing the execution of a bond purchase agreement and an escrow agreement, approving an official statement, and enacting other provisions related to the subject.
I have a motion, Ms. Duke. I need a second. Mr. McDaniel, thank you. Any questions or concerns before we vote on this one? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous, Ms. Arnold. And I need a motion, please, for action item number 7.
I move to consider the order authorizing the issuance of unlimited tax school building bonds, Series 2013D, establishing sale parameters, approving an official statement, and enacting other provisions relating to the subject.
That was a motion, Ms. Sheffield. I need a second. Thank you, Ms. Fowdy. Any questions or concerns regarding this one? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much, sirs. We'll see you in a couple minutes. Moving on to the consent agenda. Consent items, I need a first, anybody want to pull anything off? No? Okay, I need a motion, please.
I move that all consent agenda items be approved as presented.
Motion, Ms. Latham. Second, Ms. Duke. Okay. Questions or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. If there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and the time is 8:47. Thank you all very much.